Good to see you. I can hardly, my voice is mostly gone from so much happening and a virus. Um, Coming to you live from northern Israel. Today, sadly, in Israel, there was a mass shooting terror attack in the north end of Jerusalem in an area of the town, the city called Ramot. And there was an attack there by two suspected Palestinian terrorists who opened fire and killed 6 adults. The IDF responded by raiding the villages. Surely they will, specifically target the homes of the two Palestinians involved in the shooting. That's normal procedure. Palestinians have known this for many, many, many years. If you attack Israel, if you come from if you are living in Judea, Samaria, Gaza, or even Israel, and you attack Israel, well, there's a extremely high probability, according to the protocol, that the security establishment will be visiting your home. And when they do, it is extremely likely that they will rifle through everything, look for any information they can glean, make sure there's nobody else in the home that is a threat to the state of Israel, and then they will very likely destroy the home. And they do this to send a message. Of course, the Palestinians have their little loophole, which is they pay the people to attack Israelis. So Palestinians are enticed by the prospect of, even though you'll lose your home, we'll pay you so much money to your family if you die in this attack. Or even if you get injured, we'll pay you enough to live in a comfortable new house and a comfortable new life, and you'll be treated like a hero. If you somehow get injured or don't get injured, just get captured or escape. But if you actually die, then we'll pay your family even more, glorify you as a martyr, etc., etc. It's called pay for slay. And even though theoretically the Palestinian Authority did away with this practice some months ago, the reality is that they still practice it. They just use different loopholes on how they fund it. Hello, I say hello to you. Hello, hello. You can't hear me? Did you say mic off? Can you not hear me? I hope you guys can hear me. Can you hear me now? Hello. Right. Anyway, so yeah, so that's what happens. When terrorists attack Israel, and they come from villages, in areas that Israel controls. They come from cities, towns, or villages that Israel controls or has, security access to in some way, shape, or form. It's going to take the measures that it takes, and that usually involves leveling the homes of the attackers. And you might say, well, it's not fair. That's collective punishment. It's not collective punishment. It's very targeted punishment to the attackers. Yes, does it affect the members of their family? Yeah, it does. But Israel's not killing the members of their family. Israel's not even arresting them if they have nothing to do with it. They might question them. They want to know more details, find out as much information as they can. But they have, Israel's security establishment has zero interest in even harassing the people that have no connection to the actual attacks. Right? So you can look at it that way. You can look at it that way. Israel would not be taking these measures, point blank, would not be destroying any homes at all if there were not people attacking Israel in this way. There'd be no reason to. There would just not be any reason for Israel to launch these kind of attacks. As the counter strikes, obviously, and then people will point that to what's happening right now in Gaza City and say, look, they're doing all the things we predicted, genocide and all this stuff. It's not, right? They're doing exactly what they said. Right? They're softening up the target, which is Gaza City. Right? And when they do that, they're taking out the key infrastructure that they need in order to take control of the city, which is their goal, as they stated it. And the reason it's the goal, as they stated it, is because that is considered to be one of the latest or last holdouts of the bad guys in Gaza right now, who are holding, in theory, the hostages in or around Gaza City. Right? Probably in some huge tunnel network there that has yet to be fully unearthed, so to speak. And when it is, it will probably be a lot of fireworks because that is the last major area of the strip that has yet to be fully penetrated by the IDF to a significant degree, right? Which is why they're going there in the first place, right? They're not uh, they're not going there for a walk in the park. They're not going there for a picnic, right? They're in that area because um, that is the place where there's the highest probability of recovering hostages and of eliminating what's left of Hamas in that area to the point where Israel could definitively say, okay, we now have achieved an undoubted kinetic victory. Obviously, it already has, but you know, when you get rid of the current list, like the C-listers that are currently in charge of Hamas in Gaza, then Israel has gotten rid of already more than 3 rounds of all the top leadership in Gaza, and the top leadership that was in the public, it's in the public eye. The top leadership like Ismail Haniyeh, etc., that were outside of Gaza. But in Gaza, there's really, there's no one left practically. There's just really no one left. I mean, there are, yeah, but not people who have many years of experience running the show. The people who had experience running the show are gone. They are past tense. They are, in whatever comes after they were rapidly disassembled by the Israeli Defense Forces, um, or whoever set them off of this mortal coil. Now, all this brings into question, why is this all happening in the run up to the UN General Assembly annual meeting when everyone expects 3 countries to declare that Palestine, they recognize Palestine will be a state or whatever. And they can recognize whatever they want. Israel also recognizes that it's not ideal that many of our closest allies are doing such anti-Israeli things. We understand that we're paying the diplomatic price and the public relations price because people want to live in their world of lies. They don't want to believe facts. They don't want to say, "Oh, who is actually responsible for this war? Oh, it's actually Hamas. Oh, why? Well, they actually started this shit. And who's responsible for keeping it going? Oh, it's actually Hamas. Why? Well, because they refuse to stop it. Well, how could they just stop it? No, they can't just stop it by themselves. Yeah, they can. They are the aggressor. They are the one who started the war. Israel has no interest in having a war. Hamas only has to surrender the people that were responsible for October 7th, the ones that are still alive, and to release all the hostages. Right? Surrender those people, remove yourselves from power, because there's no going forward with Hamas in power. Even Hamas has said that they would give up power, by the way, but they haven't done it yet because they don't want to, and they don't want to give up power because if they actually do, even though they said they want to, if they actually do give up power, think about what happens to them. Then they become another irrelevant terrorist group. And yes, they're still a terrorist group, but they're not the voice of the Palestinian people in Gaza. They don't want that. They do not want to give that up, right? As far as they're concerned, that's like everything. So giving that up to them is, almost as bad as making them publicly admit that they lost land, which is why I still say that that is the kryptonite of Hamas, and that is what Israel should use to show its weaknesses. You can't hear me? You said you can't hear me. Is there anybody? If you can hear me, make a thumbs up or a comment or something. Can you not hear me? I don't know if you can hear me or not, but if you can't hear me, let me know, please, because I'm talking. It appears that my voice is coming through, as far as I can tell. So, yeah, I mean, we live in crazy times, man. But of course, Israel is aware of the public pressure that it's under. Obviously, whether they're handling it correctly or not, that's a different story. But are they aware of it? Well, yeah, obviously. How could they not be? We live with this. We live with this issue every moment of every day. There is no time of the day when we just suddenly forget that we're in this war. Yes, are there times of the day or the week or the month or the year that we allow ourselves to think about other things? Yeah, we don't allow. We have to think about other things. But even when the war is in the back of our mind, it is still in the back of our mind, and you do notice it in conversations you have with people. It comes up a lot, even when you're not talking about it. It comes up. Right? Even if you're talking about completely different subject matter, inevitably it comes up. The reason that it inevitably comes up is kind of simple. It's affecting everyone. It affects everyone directly. Why? Because the war affects us all, each in different ways. Right? The war affects us. The war makes it harder for us to work. The war makes it harder for us to live, or groceries, whatever. You know, not impossible. There's still, you got all the groceries on the shelves and everything, but it's affected, you know, prices of things. It has affected employment. It has affected housing. It has affected a lot of things. It has affected, obviously, the number of people who are bereaved during the course of the war, and at any given point in time, there are people bereaved over war dead that just happened or recently happened because this war is taking its toll on all sides, as we always knew it would. The thing is, the difference is Israel is stronger than the Palestinians in this case, and we all know that. They know that too. That is why they're dying literally for us to kill them. They want nothing more than for, like, the Hamas wants nothing more than for Israel to kill more Palestinians. That's what they want. The more of them that die, in their head, the better they look in international eyes. And the only reason that that's true, because there's a bunch of retardation happening. There's a technical term. A bunch of retardation happening in in the West, and that is a direct result of things like Qatari influence on education in America. Right? The more Qataris influence how Americans learn and what Americans learn, and if you think they don't, they absolutely do. If you think hundreds of millions a year or billions a year collectively injected directly into American colleges does not impact what those colleges teach, I got news for you. It most definitely does. Yeah. Because they can directly influence research, they can directly influence books that are published, they can directly influence the syllabus, they can directly influence the teaching materials, they can directly influence the opinions taught by even tenured professors. even ones who say they are against their views, can inevitably be plied to promote their propaganda. 35 years ago, you'd be hard pressed to find more than half of the teachers openly expressing basically pro Hamas views. Now, in the US, in the political arena of education, anything that deals with politics or society or culture in any way like that, literature, arts, anything. Frankly, they're even in the scientific areas where it's completely irrelevant, but even there, we've seen huge numbers of professors do insane things. But in the political areas, it has been like nonstop. And the amount of professors that we've seen that are now basically towing the Qatari line in the US, just in the US, it's worse in other countries like in Europe, across Europe, in different countries. But just in the US, we've seen, you know, I would get, I forget the exact number that I saw, so I would guess having, without giving you the exact quote, but I would say more than half are confirmed to be basically pushing the pro Hamas line, which is a horrible number. I would say it's a shocking number, except I'm not shocked by it because that's what you get when for more than 35 years, and even more, about 40 years now, we've had Soviet and then afterwards as well Arab agitprop being injected directly into the American education system. That's exactly how they did it. Okay, I don't know if you ever saw it, but there was this KGB official who went on TV in America, and he defected, or so, and he explained very clearly what agitprop is and how the Soviets used it and how they viewed it as a long game strategy to basically misinform a nation, to misinform your enemy's people to the point where they don't even know what's real or what's fake or what's right or what's wrong or what's true, what's false anymore. They have no idea. Right? People who have completely American values, like in the 80s, would be, or 70s or 60s, would be eventually turned into anti Americans who hated America and wanted to undermine it. And that it would take two generations to do it. The first generation, it would be to misinform as many people as possible and create basically utter confusion, ongoing debate, ongoing, constant questioning. What are we? Who are we? Why are we doing what we're doing? Are we doing the right thing, etc.? Which are good, valid questions to debate. But when you lose the plot and you forget that you are, in fact, the good guys, or should be, then you're really easy to manipulate. And with enough misinformation and deception, that's exactly what the Soviets began doing. And even after they collapsed, the Russians continued doing it. To this day, they continue doing it. And the Qataris and the Emiratis and the Saudis, they've been doing that as well. Because even though America may think it has great allies in Saudi Arabia, wherever else around the Arab Emirates, and indeed many of the people there are close allies of the United States personally and even professionally. When it comes to their governments, the governments are a different story for the most part. Let's say for the most part, because maybe it's not 100%, but for the absolutely most part, the governments in that region are not pro American. Like, they're really not. They're still jihadi in some way or another. Even if they want to appear like they're reforming, and even if they do things like ban the Hamas from their under the Islamic Brotherhood from their land, or ban Al Jazeera, it's because they don't want to appear like they're bad guys. But they are. And the moment that they get the chance, they'll show that. But again, of course, I know there are exceptions. Okay, fine. But for the most part, talking about the most part, the fact is, those governments still consider themselves to be jihadi governments on a mission to spread Shia around the world. And they really do. That's actually their ambition. They want to spread that kind of philosophy, if you want to call that religion, around the world, despite the harm that it will cause the people of the planet by, conquesting and colonizing more land, which is exactly what they are. Right? Like they always say that we're the colonizers here. But actually, when you look at the facts, the actual colonizers are the ones who are colonizing. And who's doing that in this land? Right? Who's actually colonizing right now? Right? Is it actually the people uh, that are here already and that have been here since basically time immemorial? Yeah, we've come and we've gone, and we've come and we've gone, and we've come back. We've been dispersed around the world a couple of times for thousands of years, but we've always had a presence here, even when we were largely dispersed around the world. We still had a presence here. What does that mean? It means that there were always Jews living in this area for thousands and thousands of years. That's why Jews say we are the indigenous people of this land. It's not a question. It isn't a question. Now you can ask, when did that start? Who was here before? Who has been here throughout the time you've been here? And the fact is that the people that were here before Jews got to this land, or before Hebrews first arrived, when Abraham showed up, he was the first Hebrew, you could call him, with his family. You got the first Hebrews. They came here, they settled here, he grew his family here. Eventually, they became a people, the Hebrews. Eventually, the Hebrews became the Israelites. The Israelites became also eventually, from the Israelites, became the Jews, right? From Yaakov, Jacob wrestled with God, became Israel, became the Jews and all that. From Yehuda, from Judah, from Judah came the Jews. From Yaakov came Israel. Right? Israel meaning wrestle with God. Some people will tell you it means different things. That's a clean interpretation of it. And what does that mean? It basically means that during the time that Jews have been here, many nations have come and gone. Many nations. And we're living in a place where dozens of nations, at one time or another, have lived. Dozens. And also, many nations have actually conquered this land to some degree. Sometimes completely, sometimes partially. Have properly conquered this land and made of it their, part of their empire, or part of their, greater land for some time. It is, in fact, only Israel, since Israel first existed as a kingdom thousands of years ago, it is in fact only the Jews who ever had their kingdom or nation or state or country actually based here, headquartered here, with the capital here in Jerusalem. It's not any other nation that's ever done that. Think about that, Ottomans, Mamelukes, British, obviously, the Arabs. This was never the capital of any empire or kingdom or nation or state or country, except for when it was run by countries run by the Jews, set up and run by the Jews. That's it. Every other nation that has ever controlled this land since the Jews, since the Hebrews first arrived, every other nation saw this land as part of something larger that they controlled. They never considered this to be the main part of what they controlled. Why is that important? It's important because it demonstrates that of all the people that are still around today, that actually still exist today, okay, there are no more Canaanites today. Of all the people that are still around today as a people, whether they have a country or not, the only people on earth that ever viewed this place as their actual national homeland and the center and the heartbeat of their people are the Jews. That's it. It's not complicated. It's really not complicated. Everybody else who claims this land, in particular currently the Arabs who want to call it Palestine, are selling a lie. They're telling a lie and they're selling a lie every time they say that Israel is, has always been there. And Palestine, they call it, has always been their homeland and has always been, their nation, and they want it to be again. It never was a nation. Does that mean there weren't Arabs here living? Of course, there were Arabs here living here. They conquered this place. They occupied it. They colonized it. They are literally conquering practically white colonizers from coming from Arabia. Okay, yeah, they're brown. They're not very. Some of them are very brown. Most of them not so brown. If you met a bunch of Saudis, you'll know that they're not all super dark. In fact, many are quite white. Not that that means anything, but it is just ironic because they call Jews white colonizers when they themselves are pretty light skinned, many of them. Look at the king of Saudi Arabia. He's not exactly a dark man on his skin color. Again, not that that matters, but it's an argument they constantly make. They try to make it seem as though Jews or Israelis are, bad people who don't belong here because we're white. Well, first of all, we weren't white enough for the Nazis to call us white and to not murder us because we were, because we were white. They didn't think we were white. The Holocaust happened precisely because Jews were considered other and different and not white. Okay? So people saying Jews are in general, even Ashkenazi Jews, they're calling us white. It's crazy. And then you've got the fact that there's plenty of Sephardic, Mizrahi, North African Jews, and other Jews who are very much not white, like Ethiopian Jews, who are very much black, right? Calling them white colonizers, which, by the way, sometimes you hear that. You hear that kind of talk directed at literally black Jews. You're a white colonizer. Like, bro, the guy's black. Doesn't matter. The idiots on parade will not stop their idiotic ways. And they're all selling a lie. They're telling a lie and selling a lie. Right? The lie is very clear. This is the homeland of the Jews, and that's the truth. The lie is very clear. The lie is that this is somehow the homeland of the Palestinians. Look, maybe someday, if they put down their horrible, violent ways, it can become the homeland of the Palestinians. No problem. The legitimate homeland of an actual Palestinian state. No problem. Let's see that happen. Let's see the Palestinians become a peaceful people. But they don't want that. They just want the destruction of the one country in the world that is for Jews, by Jews, about Jews. That's all they want. They want to destroy our country. Why? Because they can't accept Jews living even in the Jewish homeland. Why? Because they once conquered it, and even though they lost it, they view us as basically subhuman, just like the Nazis did. The Arabs who are anti-Israel. I don't speak about all Arabs, yeah. I speak about the ones who are specifically anti-Israel and really anti-Semitic, but supremacists. They are really, truly ethno-supremacists. They believe they are better than other people. Now you can say, "Oh, you're being racist. You're a colonizer." You can say whatever you want. I'm speaking facts. If you don't like it, good for you. Make it. Bring up your evidence. I can show you evidence. You want to debate me? Let's go, bro. I will debate you gladly, even with my voice half shot. I will still debate you, and I will win every time. Why? Because I know the facts. I've studied these facts for a very, very, very long time. I've lived this for a very, very, very long time. I am deep, deep, deep into this to a degree that we really have no idea. You really have no idea. Okay? Some people like to read the news and be aware of what's going on. Other people like to do a lot more than that. I'm one of those people. And even publicly, I've done some things that you can see for yourself and look me up. I often mention for people who ask, yes, I have written books about this topic. In fact, I helped write the encyclopedia of the Arab-Israel conflict from 1948 until like 1993 or 1994, around the time of the Declaration of Principles with the Palestinian Authority, and right up to the peace process with Jordan. I think it was just a little bit before that, so we didn't include some of the things in the run up to that because they had not yet been finalized in the first edition. Later editions may have, but that book was written and then published in the mid '90s, and yeah, helped write that book. Is one of the many things I've written publicly. Why is that interesting? Well, it is literally an encyclopedia of facts written from a neutral point of view um, about the conflict between Arabs and Israel since 1948. It is not a book that is just like, oh, everything Israel does is right. It's not at all like that. It's not a book that's like, oh, everything Israel does is wrong, or everything the Arabs do is right or wrong. No, it is a very neutral academic encyclopedia. If you've never read it, go take a look at it. It's published by Greenwood Press. The reason I mention it is because people want to know who they're dealing with. Yes, I have written worthy publications, university level publications, written, authored. The chief author was the professor Bernard Reich, and I was one of the contributors to the book, one of the co-authors, if you want to call it, or whatever. People that helped write many entries in the book, and at the end of the day, yeah, what we're talking about in this conflict is a group of people that, on one hand, claim they want to live in peace with another group of people, and another group of people that claim they want to live in peace not next to another people. In fact, they want that other people to not exist in this area from which they stem. And they use all kinds of ridiculous lies, from the perversion of their own religion to misquotation of facts. They will say and do anything to make people believe their narrative, even when it's completely false. And that's one of the many things that is being done in and around the world of this topic of the Middle East. And it's one of the many reasons that the IDF doesn't really have a choice when we're dealing with terrorists who are so hell-bent on destroying our nation in the most brutal ways you can imagine. We don't really have a choice because we've given them every opportunity not to have their homes destroyed. They don't care. They're going to do it anyway. 20 years ago, when we were watching the Intifada, people were saying, oh, every time you shoot a Palestinian or whatever, you're causing 10 more Palestinians to be terrorists. They keep saying that. You know what happens every time Israel actually beefs up its security? Do you know what happens over the long term as that changes? Israel doesn't actually become weaker. I hate to break it to you. When Israel becomes more secure, Israel becomes more secure. When we didn't put up the wall because we wanted to put up a wall, we put up the wall because we had no choice. Did it make us less secure to have more security? No, it didn't make us less secure to have more security. It made us more secure to have more security. And if you're actually dumb enough to think that being more secure makes you less secure, read a room. Yes, are there situations where you can have a sense of false security? Absolutely. October 7th, many of Israel's top brass were caught making that exact mistake. They had a false sense of security because of technology. They believed that our systems were basically so good that the Palestinians wouldn't even bother messing with them. Well, they were wrong. They ignored the warnings. It doesn't matter if you want to believe it doesn't matter what theory you want to believe. Factually, they ignored the warnings. We already had top generals resign because of this. People who took accountability upon themselves, unlike the current prime minister. And you can say whatever you want about him. You like him, you don't like him, I don't care. That's not the point of this discussion. The fact is, he has not yet taken accountability. And he himself says the time will come when all these questions will be asked that I'll have to answer to. He said that in maybe different words, whatever, but in many interviews he has said that exact same thing. You may disagree with that. You may disagree with how it's being done. But even he acknowledges that he has not yet taken accountability and that probably he will at some point do that in the future. But other generals or generals who worked for him when they were still generals um, have taken accountability and have said, yes, we did make mistakes, including ignoring warnings. So it's well known. Okay, it's not a secret. It's not a maybe. The people who ignored the warnings have said we ignored the warnings. Okay. So this isn't a question. Did they ignore the warnings or not? No, they absolutely ignored the warnings. There's not a question. When the people who ignored them told you, yeah, we ignored them. It's not a question. Yeah, you can have a false sense of security. But generally speaking, when you have more security, you're more secure. Okay? Did the 1,200 people get needlessly murdered on October 7th and launch this insane war that we've had now going on for 2 years? Yeah, that happened. How many people, and including the 6 people that were killed today in an act of terrorism in Jerusalem, how many people have died in Israel since October 7th due to terrorism? The number is surprisingly low, given that it's a country in a state of war with its direct neighbor and fighting on practically 7 fronts, although some of those fronts have relatively quieted down. How many people have actually been killed in Israel since October 7th due to terrorism? You know? If you don't know, I suggest you look it up. You'll find that it is actually surprisingly low. For one reason and one reason only. Yes, many people have died. I understand that. But the number that you'd think would have been the number, you'd probably think, I don't know, if they lost 1,200 in one day on October 7th, surely they must have had 10,000 dead by now, right? In the ongoing fighting. You'd be way off. You would be way off, okay? During the, wow, that is cool. That is cool. Let me see if I can shoot that. Look at that. Can you see what that is? That is a Smurf house. Look at the Smurf house. Probably Smurf house is there somewhere. Definitely a Smurf house. Can you see there on the side? Look at that. I think I twist your head for it, but cool. Anyway, houses are cool. It's that time of year. One of those times of year. Here in Israel, you get the little Smurf houses popping out of the street. The grass. So having extra security has made Israel more secure, not less secure. That's the bottom line on that issue. Okay. You could tell me that the wall does not make Israel more secure. No, factually it does. We used to have a lot more attacks and attempted attacks every day, every single day, before the wall was built. Once the wall was built, those attacks dropped off like flies. We still have attacks, attempted attacks, even every day. They still have sometimes 1, sometimes 2, sometimes 3. But it used to be, 5, 10, 10, 5, 10, 20, at least attempts every single day. Every single day before we had a wall. And now it's lower by a lot. And why is it lower? Well, it's lower because Israel doesn't take any crapola from anyone on that issue anymore. We're done playing nice with the people who want to kill us. We don't accept that kind of behavior. If somebody wants to destroy us, we've got another thing coming. Right? We are going to do what we have to do to make damn sure that the bad guys don't get through the gates. It's really that simple. It's really, really that simple. Huh. So, as I begin to wind this thing down, I'm not done yet, but think about what would you do? What would you expect your country to do, wherever you're from? What would you expect your country to do if, from the moment that it was declared that it would become a state, not even was a state, would become a state, it was under constant attacks? The moment it declared its independence, it was literally attacked by 5 major armies, far more advanced and resourced and trained than yours. And they intended to literally wipe out every last man, woman, and child. That's as they declared it publicly. And that's what they told their own people to get their people out of the way, which is what caused the quote unquote Nakba. It was literally the Arabs screwing up so badly that they removed themselves from this land rather than stay here peacefully. Had they stayed here peacefully, they would have lived here peacefully like the other Israeli Arabs who stayed here peacefully. They'd enjoy the same rights that every other Israeli enjoys. In fact, even more, because they do not have to serve in the army. They can if they want, but they are not obliged. So arguably, they have more rights than Israelis. The one right that Arab Israelis don't enjoy, that Jewish Israelis enjoy, is what we call the right of return, which is if they left in 1948, then they can't just come back so easily. Well, guess what? If they left in 1948, then they're not Israeli anyway. So why would they come back to Israel? So it's not even a right they don't have. It's not applicable. They were never Israeli. They never belonged to the Israeli people. Their forefathers, their grandparents, whatever, never wanted to be part of Israel. So they left. So they weren't Israeli. So how can they claim to be Israeli and want to come back? They're not. And you say, well, how come Jews are allowed to do that? Because Israel is a land for Jews, by Jews, about Jews. Just like there are lands for Arabs, by Arabs, about Arabs. Just like there are lands for Muslims, by Muslims, about Muslims. Just like there are lands for Christians, by Christians, about Christians. There is only one country, though, that is for Jews, by Jews, about Jews. There are hundreds, practically, of countries that are for, by, and about other groups. There's only one that's for, by, and about the Jews. Only one. Why should it even have to give up another square inch to anyone when it's already agreed to accepting 10%, 10% of the land that it was originally promised that was promised, I should say, not originally, but that it was promised politically in the first political map following the establishment of the political Teddy Herzl Zionist movement. Teddy Herzl led or pioneered the Zionist movement. There was always a Zionist movement in their spiritual sense in Judaism, because we always constantly pray, to go back to Jerusalem and rebuild Zion, What is Zion? Zion is another name for Mount Zion or Jerusalem or Israel. Okay, it's an interchangeable name in the Bible, and so there's always been a spiritual Zionist movement. Jews have always been Zionist in that sense. Anybody who says it's not true doesn't understand Judaism, even if they're Jewish. I don't care, okay? Because it absolutely is. And political Zionism, as pioneered by Teddy Herzl, that's a different just evolution of it. It's the same thing. It's just making it a popular political movement. It's the same thing, really, but it's just expressing it in a way that made people in the contemporary world understand this isn't just a religious idea to us. We all believe this. The vast majority of us, anyway, believe this as Jews, and we want a land to call our own. We're sick of waiting. We waited now more than 1,800 years. By the time he wrote that, it was like 1,800 years since Rome had destroyed Israel, right? So, of course, the Jews wanted a nation to call home again. And obviously, this shouldn't surprise anyone. Right? What's surprising is that there are people who are surprised by it. What's surprising is that there are people who don't understand the very basic concept of what political Zionism is and how it's intertwined with, but distinct from in its expression, religious Zionism and political Zionism, and what the distinctions are. It's surprising only that the people who claim to know about these things and clearly do not make those kind of basic elementary mistakes when talking about these topics. It's kind of shocking, to be honest. So, take that for what it's worth. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Realize that there's no immediate cessation to the problem when there's only one side interested in seeing a peaceful resolution and the other side is just hell-bent on destruction. And as long as that side still exists, there's going to be destruction. And even if it means they're going to be receiving most of the destruction because kinetically they're weaker, they're still going to do that because they view that to be in their favor. They view that to be an advantage to them. They view themselves as David and we're the Goliath, which is ironic because they also tell you that they are the descendants of the Philistines. But who exactly was David and who exactly was Goliath? David was the Israelite. Goliath was the Philistine. And by the way, Philistine comes from the word in Hebrew, Paleshet. Paleshet, Philistia, Philistine, Paleshet, Palestine, Paleshet, Palestine. Now you want to make that connection, even though it's not Palestine, but it's Philistia, right, in the ancient Greek. Or Philistines in the English. Philistines are invaders, right? They were people from ancient Crete, ancient Greece. They were Greek invaders, and they controlled about 5 little towns or villages in the area around Ashkelon, near Gaza, and all the way up to southern Lebanon, right? Tyre, etc. So they are literally invaders. And the current people calling themselves Palestinians say that they are Philistines. Well, if you're Philistines, that means you're invaders to this place. You're not native. You may be born here, but your roots are not. You call yourself. You didn't come here by force. You showed up on a wagon, horse-drawn or donkey-drawn wagon with his family, and they settled here peacefully. And they made a family bigger and bigger, and they became a people eventually. Homegrown right here. That's that for now.